Right, my name is Andy Newman. My father joined the Foreign Service when I was a little kid, so I grew up mostly in Europe, and I went to school and high school in Italy, France, and England, and then I went to college in England, and then I came back to the United States and went to law school in Washington, D.C., and immediately proceeded from law school to a law firm that I stayed with for the entire duration of my career, which lasted about 15 years. And with each passing year, it became more and more, how should I put it, strenuous and challenging.
Miserable.
Miserable might work as well. And along there, probably after I'd been practicing for 10, 12 years or so, a friend who was tired of me being miserable gave me an oil paint set, and I started messing around at the weekend. There is, in our family, my mother was a watercolorist, my brother went to art school, and my sister minored in art, so obviously there's some kind of genetic predisposition towards this. So since my mother was a watercolorist, and a lot of people who are lawyers become lawyers because they like order and they like structure, and watercolor is not ordered or structured. And so when I borrowed some of my mother's things as a child or what have you, I said, no, this is terrible. I don't like this at all. I'll do model airplanes instead. So when I got the oil set, oil lends itself much more to being both ordered and structured. So I really liked it. And I continued to work a little bit at the weekends and messed around and did this, that, and the other thing. And then in the summer of 1991, by which time I had been a partner in the law firm already for several years, and I was doing litigation, and litigation has its combative aspects, which was also, to borrow your adjective, miserable. And in that particular summer, I had this sudden sort of apprehension, called it Road to Damascus, whatever, that, Andy, you only live once. Do you want to spend the next X number of years going to depositions and, hammering away at hostile witnesses and even more hostile opposing counsel? No, I don't think you want to do that. And you're fussing around with these oil paints, and that's kind of neat. And so I, a few weeks after that, went to the managing partner and I said, this is what I think I want to do. And he said, well, you're nuts, but I hear you, I understand. And it took me from that point forward about 3 years to slowly unwind my practice, during which time I also basically worked 2 jobs because I worked on getting better and better and better and more proficient as a painter with any spare waking hour that I had. And at the end of that period, to be precise, December 31, 1994, I left the law firm, and on January 1, 1995, began my life as a painter. And I was very, very lucky because about 6 weeks before I left the law firm, a very important Portuguese art collector came to an exhibition of mine in Washington, and he heard, what I've just been telling you. And he said, well, that's all very exciting. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to come to Lisbon early next year, let's say the month of February, and I'll introduce you around. And I went to Lisbon in February of 1995, was introduced to the gallery that I'm with to this day, and had a big exhibition that very year. So it seemed to me that there was affirmation from above that I had made the right decision. And that began the structure of the life that I have now. And what you see here, primarily, these landscape pictures are largely from France. I have some also from Portugal, and I've done some other European countries. And in addition to landscape, for most of the 90s, I did figures, and then these days I do some abstracts as well. And different galleries have more of a particular type of painting than others. And France is where, when my father joined the Foreign Service, that's where we moved, and I was 5 at the time, So I spent lots and lots of time there. I was put in French schools, so that's very much my second language, and I have a real affinity for the country. So it's very instinctive and natural and fun for me to paint over and over and over again, you know, obscure villages with some run-down houses. You know, I never tire. So with that, for the moment, I yield the floor, and the planted question is, you've got the planted question.
It wasn't planted, it came. So you kind of said no to watercolors as a young child. Have you ever dipped your toes back into doing watercolors now?
In a sense, I work in multiple media now. To the extent I work in water-based media, it's acrylic rather than watercolor. Sometimes I've used some tempera and sometimes some gouache. And a lot of the work here will have some pastel in it. Certainly it has acrylic in that the acrylic is the underpainting, because, you know, seldom do I work on a white canvas. I'll tint the canvas using acrylic because you can cover a lot of space very, very quickly, and it's very malleable. And all those features that I didn't like for purposes of composing or for drawing, it's great if you want to slosh the watery paint around there and have some sort of texture and some sort of, you know, image even before you put something on top using the oil. So I shouldn't disparage water-based paints too much.